Good morning, friends. Before we get started, I wanted to be sure to just take a moment. I know many of us have been having a hard time, whether you're in Alaska, whether you're in Idaho, whether you're in Washington or Oregon. I wanted us all to begin by centering ourselves, and I'm not trying to do some sort of woo-woo thing. I just know because of COVID, because of social unrest, because of financial hardships, because of the amount of work that many of you are responsible for doing, we've had a very hard time, but we're in our happy place. We're in our safe place. We're in our zone. We're going to learn a lot together over the next couple of days. So I just wanted to take one moment and just breathe deep in and breathe deep out. And that's the only moment you're going to get. We're going to go ahead and get started. So I don't know, Michael, if we have the bumper video. I think that was playing, but there's some highlights of the day. Can you please share the slide? And it should have the highlights of the day. I wanted to also thank our sponsors, Key Bank, Housing Authority's Risk Retention Pool, Yardi, B2A CPAs, and Umpqua Bank. So thank you for being a part of this. And thank you all for those who attended our first online inaugural conference. Maybe this will be the only one, because I'm going to put it out there. We're gonna be okay next year. We're gonna be meeting in person. You know, we're going to be hopefully being able to shake hands, maybe even hug. I'm still going to wear a mask. I don't know if you all are. I know Georgie might continue wearing a mask. He likes masks. He looks like a guy who likes masks. Maybe Tess will wear a mask too. You know, who knows? But I think Michael, do we have a sponsor video that we need to play?
The PowerPoint is down right now, so we're gonna kind of wing it for a second. So
okay.
Some of the highlights for today, following this session, we will be having a COVID resources and updates with Georgie and Tess from National NARO. Then after lunch, before then, at 10 o'clock, we're gonna have a meeting of, get to meet and greet the exhibitors and sponsors in the virtual exhibit hall. Make sure you attend that. Starting off at 1 o'clock, we'll be having our virtual coffee shops, which will be a HUD update, innovations in FSS, and a commissioner's corner. After that, we'll have several breakout sessions from crisis management strategies dealing with COVID, PNRC NARO one-on-one, understanding GASB 87, two-year tool, going mobile, and addressing mental health issues and housing. So a big agenda for today. We're very excited. Another plug to our sponsors and exhibitors. Please make sure you can check out the virtual exhibit hall here in a little while after the COVID update. You don't want to miss it. Also, while you're doing everything, check out the event game. It'll be on the right-hand side in the menu, and you get points for attending the different sessions, posting different pictures. So it's going to be a lot of fun. We're looking forward to a great week. So let me give.
Yes, thank you, Michael, for that. So while Michael is putting some of that information up, don't forget to download the app. I have the app downloaded. I'm attending everything because I'm trying to be everywhere. Be sure to download the app. It has all the information you need. It has the speakers' bios. It has the times of the sessions. It has an explanation of the sessions. And if you have not downloaded it, download it now. There's some interesting conversations that will happen. We need everyone's input. We need everyone's advice. And we definitely need your strategic guidance as we're going through these times. And I know that there's a couple conversations that I'm going to be leading, and I can't wait to hear of. Speaking of conversations as we move on, because we're going to keep it short and tight, keeping it tight. I want to introduce both Georgie and Tess. So Georgie Bana is Director of Policy and Program Development for NARO, and Tess Hembry is Director of Congressional Relations. So Tess usually sends out a weekly, every Friday update. If you don't get the chance to read that, please be sure to take a look at that. She sometimes even adds in her favorites. If she says it's her favorite, I know it's not mine. So I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. It's pretty good. And Georgie, if you haven't met Georgie before, they're both usually at these conferences. a wealth of knowledge of information, but very, very practical in very real terms. So I'm someone who's not very good with acronyms necessarily. These two individuals can break this information down for you so you can understand what in the world we're talking about. So without further ado, for the next 10 minutes, I believe, we have Georgie and we have Tess. So Georgie, Tess, please take it away.
Tess, you're muted, but I'll say hello, PNRC, welcome. Great to be here. And Tess, go ahead. Oh, you're still muted.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Perfect.
I think Cuba and I were playing chicken on muting and unmuting me. Again, I'm Tess Embry. I'm Director of Congressional Relations at NARO. I've been with NARO first as a part-time contractor since about 2013, and then full-time for the past 2 years or so. I'm a Pacific Northwest native. I'm from Spokane, Washington, and graduated from Western Washington University in Bellingham. Georgie and I've worked together for at least, 3 or 4 years now? 4 years, yeah. And Georgie, I don't actually know, how is it that you got into housing? How did you find yourself in this industry?
Absolutely. Again, hello everyone. Thank you, PNRC. We're always happy to be here. Again, miss you in person, but seeing a lot of great faces here. So this is our new normal for at least the next little while, and we really do appreciate it. But yeah, I've been with NARO going into my 5th year, I think almost 6th year now, and I started in housing. I stumbled into it probably like most of us stumbled into it. Really happened in law school. I wanted to be a tax attorney. I went to law school, wanted to be a tax attorney. Didn't want to talk to people. I didn't want to go out there. I didn't want to be in court. Didn't want to do any of that. But it became they had a law clinic, and it was a rental housing clinic that my law school had, Michigan State University. And I joined that. I did 3 semesters in the clinic, representing tenants from affordable housing tenants to non-affordable housing tenants to students across the board. Went to a jury trial on a case for landlords keeping security deposits, with the 3 cases merged together. And after that, I said, of course, not so bad. And I always liked the real estate side of things. That was kind of the tax side I was working on. So I kind of merged the two, and opened up my own practice after law school, doing real estate pieces. But the housing authority side, the public housing, the HUD side of things, really happened after I moved to DC, probably about 15 years ago now, and I joined a consulting firm. That one of the things was voucher homeownership. That's what kicked me off in all of this. I did homeownership pieces before, buying and selling through the law side of it, but the voucher side of it was where I came into the consulting world, and that's where it blossomed and grew. And I joined NARO again about 5 years ago, and now touching a little bit of everything. And really, my real goal is to make sure, again, get that information out. We're stuck in a bubble a little bit here in DC. So when we get to come to your conferences, that's a great break for us and a great see how things are working, and let us bring things back as well. So it's been really exciting the last few years, getting to meet everyone, getting to meet the regions, go out to different places. But yeah, it's been a lot of fun. So really do appreciate it. Tess, let me throw a little back at you as well. Where did you get your housing piece? Well, you worked a lot with us as a consultant before became a full-time employee, but where did the housing side? How did you get into housing yourself?
It was a similar trajectory. I didn't go to law school, but I was working in Seattle after graduating from Western, and I had a political science degree, but I was working in a finance field. So I was working there right before the election of 2008, and I had a friend who called me who said that his friend was moving out of his group house in Washington, D.C., which, if you know much about D.C., group houses are very much an experience when you first move there. And he said, hey, why don't you come to DC and try your hand at being in political science? So it's like, all right, it's a good time to move to DC. There's probably going to be some jobs that are opening up right after a presidential election. So I moved out here, and a friend of a friend knew somebody who had started her own consulting firm a few years ago. And so she hooked me up with what I learned later was Advocacy Associates, which is my former firm. So they hired me on as a temp originally, but they'd lost a staffer that fall, and they needed somebody to work on housing policy for one of their main clients, which is the American Planning Association. So I fell into housing because they needed a staff person, but I found a pretty close connection with it just because of my experiences growing up in some of the more low-income neighborhoods in Spokane. It really connected with me trying to help people get opportunity in stable housing. A couple years after working with Advocacy Associates, I was sitting next to John Boehm in a coalition meeting, and he figured out that I was a consultant, and the rest is history.
Absolutely. When you come to DC, you always start as consultant. We may not know what we're doing, but we put that consultant title on ourselves, and we jump in there and we learn the field. We dive in head first. Absolutely. But you're part. Everyone here is part of Pacific Northwest Regional Council, where Tess and I work for the national organization. Tess, what's some of the things that you do at national? How does national interact with regional, states, and how do we all work together?
Yeah, thanks, Georgie. So my job at NARO is to be your eyes and ears on Capitol Hill, and then communicate that information back to you, and to rally the troops, grow our grassroots, and make sure that I'm not the only voice on Capitol Hill for housing and community development. I'm not the only voice for NARO. So to that effect, my work with the regions is primarily twofold. One is to make sure that you guys are getting the information that you need on what's happening on Capitol Hill with HUD through the regional communication, through the state communications. And then on top of that, you guys know how you need to respond. So I work a lot with the regional service officer, Shelley, her staff, and a lot of the regional presidents like Cupid to make sure that you guys understand when it is you need to take action, what's important, and especially if you have important members of Congress, for example, like Senator Crapo, how to develop those relationships and make sure that we are really a very loud voice in Washington for NARO.
Yeah, and I echo all that. And one question I'll almost ask myself, and we can both jump into it. But I'm the director of policy. Tess is the director of congressional relations. We work very closely together. It's really two halves of the same coin in a sense. Tess working on the congressional side, making sure those relationships are strong, and we know where to go when we have a congressional issue. But a lot of what I focus on is the HUD side of things, and really the agency side. How do those statutes then get translated into regulations? And then how do those regulations get sent out into guidance? And over the past few years, that's really grown in what we have to look at. We run public Indian housing programs and some CPD, community planning and development programs out of HUD. But now we're starting to do more than that. Homeland Security put out the public charge rule. Now we got to look at Homeland Security. Justice Department came out with some pieces. So now we're really pulling those pieces together, and that not only does that affect on the regulatory side and the administrative side, but then the ball goes back over to Tess, because now we need to talk about other committees and other groups on Congress as well, not just our authorizing and our appropriations committees. So it's been a really exciting the last few years where housing is getting attached to different things, and we then have to jump over into those roles as well. So it's been a lot of fun over the last few years, being flexible and nimble like that.
Exactly. On the congressional side as well, you guys have done a particularly good job of elevating the issue of housing up on the Hill. I've heard more members of Congress talk more in depth about public housing or the voucher program than I ever have in my 12 years in DC. So just a shout out to you guys that you make our work a lot easier by the good work that you guys are doing with your grassroots advocacy.
Absolutely. I want to throw a congratulations to some of you on the call as well, and some others in your region across the country as well. Just last week, many of you who applied for moving to work status, moving to work letters of interest for the expansion, got notice that you were able to send an application during the application process on Friday. So big congratulations. That's been something that passed back in 2016. And so it's been taking a while to get up and running. And so cohort 1, the small agency 1, group 2, the cohort 2 is also going to be submitting applications over the next few months. And we want to make sure we're a resource to all of you as well on that. So congratulations on a lot of pieces there as well. Tess, what are some of the other things that NARO does, just looking at maybe some of our day-to-day pieces. You know, what does a normal day look at NARO right now?
Right now?
Yeah, right
a normal
now.
day.
Yeah.
I spend a pretty significant portion of my day on these Zoom calls. So making sure that all the regions and states are up to date on what's happening. But then on top of that, I'm meeting with a lot of members of Congress and their staffers, especially on the needs that you guys have during COVID-19. This has really obviously consumed all of our lives, but especially my work, because you guys have significant more needs for resources. You need flexibility to do your jobs differently during COVID-19. So I really do spend a lot of my day trying to communicate that to Capitol Hill to make sure that you guys don't run out of CARES dollars and make sure that you guys don't have to do anything that isn't appropriate for your community at this point in time.
I think, yeah, absolutely. And adding on to that, just we spend a lot of time on Zoom. Tess just said that, and yeah, here, whether it's regions, states, with HUD, Zoom, Teams now. HUD is using Teams for a lot of things, and that's getting interesting. But it is hearing from you really does make sure we have the right information. You know, NARO National is still working pretty much remote. We have a few people in the office. We can go at 25%. Some places are still completely closed their offices and working 100% from home. Other places are back in the office and working like that. So making sure we know what those concerns are, because they can be different. Working from home is making sure technology is good. Working in the office is making sure you have the social distancing that can work. And you know, if your office was built in the 50s, it wasn't built for social distancing. It was, you know, sometimes pack as many people in there, or even in the, you know, the 2000s when it was all a lot of community space, you know, and the cubicle size places of things. So we know all those information, making sure that those eligible uses that you need to use those monies are what HUD knows, what Congress knows, is a lot of great information. So yeah, keep on sharing with us. Again, we're always available. Myself, my team, Tess and her team, we're all available to you. I think with that, let me turn things back over to you, Cupid. No, appreciate everyone. Thank you.
Thanks. Before you all get off, Tess and Georgie, what's the best way for members of PNRC community to work with you all? Is it through our SRO? Is it through me? Is it through their housing authority? What's the best way to work with you two?
Tess, you want to jump in?
Yeah, for starters, I would work with whoever you have a best relationship with right now for starters. So if you know Cupid really well, that's a great place to start. If you're really familiar with Shelly's team, that's a really fantastic way to start as well. Or if you work more with AWA or the Oregon State Housing Association, start there, because I do work with both of those as well. One thing that I would like to do in the coming months is work with you, Cupid, a little bit to make sure that we can tighten up some of this communication in the region and make sure that everybody here today knows exactly how to contact me and how to contact anybody on NARO's team at any point in time.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're available in any kind of forum as well, whether it's through calling, whether it's through email. We will sometimes get information from individual housing authorities. We do a lot of aggregating information as well, and see where kind of trends are, where things are happening. And we have no problem asking you guys questions as well. So it is a two-way street of information. You know, when we have a question or we see there's a couple agencies over here doing something, what's going on? Again, this is kind of a little preview for the next session. I'm going to talk about some specific pieces on PNRC states of what's going on with inspections going forward. And you'll see some trend pieces there, and we'll probably be reaching out in the next couple of weeks, next couple of months, to talk about some of those things. So that's absolutely a two-way street of communication.
Okay.
Yeah, you're just some very important members of Congress in your region. So absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you. Last question while I have the entire group here for each of you. If there's one, I know that there's a lot of anxiety going on. There's a lot of concerns around budget. There's a lot of concerns around the future of housing authorities. There's a lot of concerns around how we're going to be able to fund our communities. There's everything that we're hearing from the president. What is one thing, each of you, within the next 1 minute, one thing that you think is going to be important moving forward for us to know? And I'll start with you, Georgie.
Sure. Moving forward, and it's not a program piece, it's sharing your stories. How are you working? What's working well for you? HUD's been a lot of flexibilities have come out in the last few months. Are you taking advantage of those? And if they're working, let us know so we can let Congress know, so we can let HUD know to make sure some of those things can stick around, because these can be all test grounds for the future. And if something's working, let's keep it.
Thanks, Georgie.
And one thing I think people underestimate is the power of your own voice and the power of your constituency. So one of the most common things I hear from NARA members is, I'm not an expert on the legislation, or I don't know the bill number. I don't know how to communicate with my member of Congress. You are the expert on what is most important to them, and that is what's happening on the ground. You're the expert on housing in your community, even if you don't know the bill number or the funding level. The most important thing that you have is that voice. And your members of Congress, I don't want to say especially during an election year, but sometimes, especially during an election year, they're listening. So make sure that you utilize the voice, the power of your constituency. Make sure you vote for whomever you want to. But don't hesitate to reach out to those offices, because they appreciate hearing what's happening on the ground.
Awesome. So Georgie and Tess, thank you for that. I know we have about 100 people on this, and a lot of them are our boots on the ground. So I think we're really working to empower them, because they're the only real connection that we have to what's really going on. And I think the lived and worked experience of those who are on this call, and what we're hearing from our representatives, whether that's at the federal, state, or local level, sometimes has a disconnect. But perhaps we can work with you two to better get our narratives out there, better get our stories out there, and really understand what's going on. I think that no one really wants to waste their time if it's not going to be effective, but we have so many dedicated professionals on this call who want to get something out there if it's going to help. And I see that you two are going to be very, very influential in helping us understand moving that forward. So
just real quick,
yes.
Just real quick, I want to, just an example of that is just a couple of years ago, small agencies got their own section of the Housing Act. It had the Housing Act 1937 didn't have a section specifically for small agencies. It took time. There was SHARP and a bunch of iterations of it, but it happened because housing authorities needed it, and housing authorities told their stories to Congress, and it happened. It happened. So it takes time. Work with us. We'll work with you, and we'll make sure we keep the constant drum beating.
Thanks for that, Georgie. And I know some of these people have been in housing authorities for 20, 30 years. They're like, it does take time. I just wanted to be sure to thank everyone who's on the call. I'm going to hand it over to Michael in a quick second, just to give us the game show event code and to really close us out. But to formally close us out, I would like to say, thank you for all those who are attending from Alaska, who are attending from Washington, who are attending from Idaho, and who are attending from Oregon. A lot of you are going to be working from home. I know that a lot of you are probably working with very little rest. You're getting a lot of questions. You're having to do a lot more work. I appreciate your effort. The executive team here appreciates your effort. PNRC RSOs appreciate your effort. NARO appreciates your effort. We are nothing without our members. And so I want to be sure to give you all that thanks. And if you have not updated your phone, yes, and let's not forget those of us with lived homeless experience. Yes to that. I want to be sure that I want to thank our commissioners for being here. I talked to Shar a lot. Shar, I see you on here. Thank you for being a part of this. This is so amazing. I appreciate all of your efforts. Be sure to download. I don't know if y'all can see this. That's the PNRC NARO app. If you have a problem, be sure to inbox me. I will inbox it to Michael to help you all get that. It allows you to save what classes you want to attend. I'm going to put a shout out to mine, PNRC 101. Please come to that. Sunny is going to be on. Andy's going to be on. If you have not heard them, you'll either love them or want to fight them. Come. You don't know which one it's going to be. I'm just going to tell you that. You don't know. I think you're going to love them though. So Michael, with that, I'm going to, yes, James, it is a shameless plug. I'm that guy. I am that guy. They messed up when they voted me in president, because now I'm just like, hey, I'm one of you guys. Yes, let's do it all. I'm going to hand it over to Michael. Michael, please tell us some technical information